United States. In the late 1950s, it was the Sputnik shock, followed by the missile gap trumpeted by John F. Kennedy in the 1960 presidential campaign. A decade later, Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger sounded the dirge over bipolarity, predicting a world of five, rather than two, global powers. At the end of the 1970s, Jimmy Carter's malaise speech invoked a crisis of confidence that struck at the very heart and soul and spirit of our national will. A decade later, academics such as the Yale historian Paul Kennedy predicted the ruin of the United States, driven by overextension abroad and profligacy at home. The United States was at risk of imperial overstretch, Kennedy wrote in 1987, arguing that the sum total of the United States' global interests and obligations is nowadays far larger than the country's power.
Global interests and obligations is nowadays far larger than the country's power to defend them all simultaneously. But 3 years later, Washington dispatched 600,000 soldiers to fight the first Iraq War without reinstating the draft or raising taxes. The only price of overstretch turned out to be the mild recession of 1991. Declinism took a break in the 1990s. The United States was enjoying a nice run after the suicide of the Soviet Union, and Japan, the economic powerhouse of the 1980s, was stuck in its lost decade of stagnation, and so no longer stirred U.S. paranoia with its takeover of national treasures such as Pebble Beach and Rockefeller Center. The